Today, we're going to recap a horror movie titled The Farm, released in 2018. The movie begins with Nora and her boyfriend, Alec, on a road trip by the countryside. As the couple drives, they find themselves on an unfamiliar route. Not long after, they stop by what looks like an abandoned diner. Nora really needs to take a leak, so she excuses herself to look for a proper bathroom. She winds up at the back of the facility, where she finds the remaining parts of a camp with items like a wallet and a phone. In any case, she throws them back and continues to do her business, not realizing that a human skull lies close by. As they drive away, they unconsciously pass by a heap of human skeletons. In the car, Nora tells Alec about the abandoned campsite, but he's not interested because the low gas tank concerns him. They continue driving until they see a woman with a broken car. Alec offers to help her with his equipment and the woman accepts. While he tries to fix her car, the woman asks Nora why she and Alec aren't married yet. The question catches Nora off guard, so she tells the woman it's none of her business. The woman does not like her answer and replies that people like Nora are irresponsible and privileged. Although Nora reminds the woman that they're helping her, she simply replies she never asked for any help. Amazed by the woman's nerve, Nora tells Alec that they're going, leaving the woman with the car still broken down. As they drive away, Nora complains about Alec trying to save the day for some random stranger. Alec replies saying he was just trying to be nice. Later on, they get to a diner and decide to grab some food. After finishing their meaty burgers, Alec can't help noticing that a man keeps staring at them from the end of the aisle. However, Nora reassures him that he's likely just curious about visitors. As they get up to leave, the weird man grabs Nora's arm all of a sudden and warns her that she's not safe in that town. When Alec interferes, the man lets go and they leave. They get back in the car and Alec asks if Nora is okay and she says she's fine. Soon after, they reach a gas station, where Alec asks the cashier if there are any places to stay in the area. The cashier tells them about a wooden cabin just down the road, so the couple heads back to their vehicle. As they leave, the cashier watches them in a creepy way. When they get to the cabin, they notice a lot of cars parked around, so Alec sees this as a sign that other people are inside. Once they enter the place, Nora gets creeped out and asks Alec if they could leave. However, he reassures her that people have been there based on the used plates on the table. As they look around, they don't see anyone to help them check in, so they go upstairs. Much to their surprise, the landlord with a disfigured face greets them. He apologizes for not hearing them and proceeds to ask where they are from. Alec says they came from Los Angeles. The landlord then leads the couple to their cabin, which is isolated from the other ones. He explains that it used to be rented by Boy Scout troops, hence the bunk beds around. Alec proceeds to ask the landlord how long he has been running the place. In response, the man begins to ramble about leaving everything he knew and stumbling upon the place that he fell in love with. He then requested a job to fix up the cabins. Previously owned by a woman named Mrs. Anderson, the motel was passed down to him after her death, 4 years before. Nora becomes bored with the small talk and interrupts, suggesting that they take a break. This offends the landlord, who leaves and loudly slams the door. Alec confronts Nora about her rude approach, but she defends herself by stating that the man's appearance repulses her. As they continue to talk, they both fail to notice a bloodstain on another bed. After getting ready for bed, Alec and Nora fall asleep soundly, oblivious to the figure hiding under their bed. The next morning, the figure reveals himself as a man wearing a sheep mask. He stands over the sleeping couple and leans in closer. At some point, Nora wakes up to find herself trapped in a cage. She attempts to break free but is unsuccessful. To make matters worse, another man wearing a goat mask appears and bangs on her cage, urging her to keep quiet. He leaves Nora in the cage and walks away. Taking advantage of his absence, Nora grabs a stone and uses it to break the lock. However, he returns with another man wearing a cow mask who pours a liquid on Nora, causing her to lose consciousness. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied to a chair in a barn with her legs spread open. A veterinarian wearing a rabbit mask barges into the barn and forcibly inseminates her. Despite Nora's screams, the vet walks out and leaves her to recover. Exhausted from the ordeal, Nora is unable to fight back when two masked men enter the barn to transport her. She is then placed in a cage and pulled on a wagon by the man wearing the cow mask. Nora sees that the animal-masked people have created an entire community, with different members performing various tasks such as cleaning, building houses, and butchering humans. Shortly after, the wagon stops, and the man in the cow mask dumps Nora into a stable. Meanwhile, Alec is held captive in a tiny cage and even has a muzzle in his mouth. He desperately screams for help from the other men, but they have given up and are waiting to die. 3 masked men enter the stables and use a control pole to secure one of the captive men before bashing him in the head with a hammer. They repeat the same process with another captive. Alec becomes hysterical and rattles his cage in sheer fear, causing the men to approach and attempt to capture him with a control pole. Alec fights back but is eventually knocked out with a hammer. The men load Alec and the other unconscious captives on the wagon, delivering them to the slaughterhouse. At the slaughterhouse, the man wearing the pig mask carries a bag full of limbs. As he puts the bag away, he notices a car pulling up nearby. Afterward, he helps the driver carry a new captive into the stables. Later, the landlord, who serves as the ringleader of the vile town, meets with the man in the pig mask. The landlord mentions that they have an order to feed 80 people and asks if the food will be ready on time. Despite the man in the pig mask not speaking, the landlord understands his non-verbal responses. Frustrated, the landlord storms into the kitchen and demands that the food be ready in 2.5 hours. The workers grind some meat for lasagna and cook stew. However, as he's on a call with a customer, he realizes that the client will be picking up the food early. He tells the man in the pig mask that they have to use their dairy livestock to compensate. In another stable, several lactating women are confined to cages with suction tubes on their bosoms. When the coast is clear, Andrew, the gas station cashier, enters the stables and tries to console a grieving mother. The woman curses at him, and he becomes angry and blames the women for their situation. Meanwhile, a customer complains to the landlord that their wedding was ruined after finding a tooth in their food. As the landlord reassures them they will be compensated for the incident, someone comes in and talks to the man in the pig mask about an urgent matter. He rushes to the stables to discover that one of the women is dead, with a piece of wood with Andrew's name carved on her chest. The landlord orders his men to find Andrew immediately. Elsewhere, Nora speaks with a captive who's been imprisoned for 2 years. The captive tells her that they're all treated like farm animals and that she was impregnated to the point of being unable to conceive anymore. Despite being close to death, the captive is relieved rather than saddened. Nora panics upon hearing that there's no escape, but her fears are interrupted by the cries of another captive in a nearby cell. The captive's name is Ashley, and she's been held captive for 2 weeks. Nora assures Ashley that they will escape together. Elsewhere, Andrew amuses himself with some severed human heads when one of the landlord's men discovers him. He pleads, arguing that the woman was cruel, but the man still drags him out. Shortly after, the landlord scolds him for squandering their resources. As punishment, he is assigned to assist the farmheads in feeding the captives. However, he inadvertently spills the bucket of food and runs away to avoid the consequences. The man in the pig mask searches for him and finds him fleeing from the greenhouse. Andrew hurries to the kitchen and presents the landlord with some oregano. The landlord decides to take care of Andrew and instructs the man in the pig mask to dispose of the woman who is incapable of producing milk. In the stables, men enter the neighboring stall to Nora's and tie up the other woman. Nora witnesses the man in the pig mask butcher her. Horrified, Nora collapses onto the ground, barely able to comprehend what's happening. Later, the men depart and the stables become silent. Suddenly, the door shakes, and Nora recoils in fear. She feels relieved when she sees Alec, who instructs her to escape with him. They make their way out of the stables, dodging the farmheads. They soon come across a truck, but it won't start. A farmhead is alerted when she tries to start the engine, so Nora helps the injured Alec in hiding. They circle around the vehicle and see the farmhead only a few steps away. Fortunately, a bell rings in the distance, and the man rushes off. They continue their escape and reach a church. Nora carries Alec into the church, thinking it's a safe place. However, they find the pews covered in plastic, and upon further investigation, Nora discovers a sharp object on the altar. Meanwhile, Alec notices a mural on the wall of what appears to be Jesus and his followers, with their faces covered in animal masks. Suddenly, Alec spots the cow-masked man from the window, and they quickly hide before he enters. Nora watches as the man sits down to pray, and she takes this chance to escape. However, as they make their way out, the floorboard creaks, and the man rings the church bells to alert the others. The couple tries to flee, but Alec gets caught in a bear trap, leaving Nora to try and help him. Unfortunately, the farmheads approach, and she has no choice but to save herself. The farmheads team up, carrying a huge rock, and drop it on Alec's head, killing him instantly. Nora, devastated, continues her escape, crying. She proceeds to hide in the mail stables just before Andrew and the landlord enter. While they search the other end of the stables, Nora speaks to one of the captured men and learns about a functional bus that the farmheads used to transport their victims. The man tells her where to find the keys, and Nora thanks him before heading out. As she searches for the keys, Nora tries her best to avoid the masked people. She passes by a gasoline station, where she sees a masked man driving away in a car. She decides to follow him and ends up in a parking lot. There, she finds a hammer and grabs it. Nora then approaches the masked man from behind and knocks him out. Suddenly, a farmhead appears, and Nora rushes into the car, attempting to escape. At first, the car struggles to start, but Nora manages to drive away, feeling relieved that she finally escaped. However, the engine fails, leaving her with no choice but to get out of the car and run for it. The farmheads chase after her, and she runs into the basement of one of the facilities around. There, she spots a window and tries to escape through it. The farmheads corner her, but Nora manages to open the window. However, as she climbs out, a man grabs her ankle. Nora uses the sharp object from the church to stab him, allowing her to run away. As Nora makes it outside, she spots the bus that the man from the stables mentioned. It's located near the stables, where Ashley is hiding, so Nora decides to bring her along. Although Ashley is hesitant to go, she eventually follows Nora's lead. Once they board the bus, they realize that they don't have the keys to start it. They run to the nearby house to search for the keys, and Nora finds them. They immediately rush back to the vehicle, with Nora starting the engine and a smile on her face, as she knows that they're finally free. However, Nora notices that Ashley has fallen silent. To their dismay, all the farmheads are seated at the end of the bus, staring straight at them. The movie ends with a scene of the masked people gathered around the dinner table, where Nora and Ashley are served with apples in their mouths. Thanks for watching. If you like our content, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe.